What's up everybody, D-Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and we're about to do a little bit of a blast to the past. Please join me on this one as we unbox and review the final Playmates classic Godzilla figure that I have yet to review, other than the Baragon, because I cannot find that thing. I was told they wildly underproduced it, and it's just, I don't want to order it for way more than it's worth. So this is the last one as far as I'm concerned, unless I come across that one at like original retail value, around the $10 range. Not saying never is gonna happen, but okay, shut up. Let me get to the intro. Join me as we review the Playmates Godzilla 2004, one of the very first classic Godzillas they released from Playmates, part of Wave 1. So let's check this guy out and see what he's all about. Before we actually open up and review the figure, I wanted to talk about this for just the fastest little bit. This was the original Godzilla Energy drink that I ever got. It is a blue raspberry energy drink, as pretty much all the Godzilla ones are. I remember it tasting pretty cool, but I just wanted to show it off. It's a classic Toho Godzilla. It is the Heisei Godzilla. I know it's not Final Wars, but I wanted to show it off here because I never have shown it off before, and I thought it was pretty neat. I thought the can was pretty neat. I thought the taste was pretty good, and so I wanted to bring it up. Now anyways, let's get into the figure. As I've said in a lot of these Playmates classic Godzilla reviews, I don't like the original packaging. It's just a reuse of the old Bandai packaging. It's got a Bandai Godzilla on the side here. Don't like it. I wish the Godzilla on the side reflected the Godzilla that was being sold, but obviously there's licensing things that go into that make that the case. There's the back of the packaging with all the figures and characters that you could get at the time, and we have reviewed all of them at this point. We actually just reviewed the Burning Godzilla recently, who isn't on the back of this packaging, but was one of the OGs. And now we are going to cap it off with Godzilla Final Wars. Pretty fitting. Well, Godzilla came out in 3 pieces here. His leg came off, and he looks so weird. He looks so weird, like he got sliced straight in half, like he's like small. It's strange looking. Put him on a wall, or have him be like a wallpaper, like he's coming out from the side of a wall, you know? All right, well, let's find out how easy it is to get the leg back on. I didn't take the leg off. Oh, it was incredibly easy. Maybe that's why it came off. I see. The leg literally just pops on and off. Okay, great. Yeah, that would get lost. All right, as for the tail, this is, not my favorite design for their tail pieces. I'm glad they moved away from these because these are hard to get in. You can force it in there. It actually isn't the hardest to go in. It was easier than the Burning Godzilla's was, but it is painful because the spines on the tail are really sharp. They're actually really painful. And there he is. There's Godzilla in his awkward pose and all, looking very thin, very tiny Godzilla. You have been dehydrated over here, buddy. This sculpt is pretty disappointing. It is not their best work. This was part of Wave 1, where all of their sculpts were not good. The Burning Godzilla was surprisingly cool, but this is not living up to that legacy. This looks pretty rough. The skin texture on the whole body actually looks pretty decent. They've done a good job giving Godzilla his bumpy texture that the Toho Godzilla's always had, and then he does have some good details, like his neck looks pretty alright. The chest looks good. I like the details on the chest. I like where it sinks in the midsection, then goes back down. The legs look cool, especially this leg has some really cool muscle texturing within it, but this one also does as well. You can see the muscles there. I like the pose of the legs. I like how they're curved like that. Of course, the Playmates Godzillas all do kind of stand one foot in front of the other, kind of stand at a walking angle, unlike the old Bandai's, which stood much more evenly like this. That gives Godzilla a very silly little stance there, but when you have him standing normally, it looks all right. The arms are okay. They've got the joint really low, so it gives Godzilla this kind of odd stiff positioning. Same with this arm, where it's just kind of really far out before you even get to the joint, so Godzilla's kind of forced into these more awkward stiff poses. The spines are okay. They're very smooth. That's actually surprising considering Playmates usually excels at the spines, but these ones are actually fairly smooth, and they're so far spaced from one to the next. Not really representative of Godzilla from the movie movie. We're also missing quite a bit of spines. Also, it's got this raised bump edge on the side of his back here where they've put the back piece into the Godzilla body, which is very cheap. It's especially noticeable on the back where you can just see the line running down Godzilla's entire back, and it looks very cheap. Getting into the actual tail piece, I really like the pose. I like the curve of it, so that's cool. And the bottom of the tail has nice detailing, and the top of the tail actually is pretty well sculpted as well. The spines look pretty decent on the top of the tail. The feet look a little mushy, and then where you really lose me is the head, which I do not think looks good. The teeth actually look alright, but it's everything else that looks bad. The face overall just looks horrendous. It does not look like Godzilla from the movie even a little bit. Like, I guess I can tell it's the Final Wars Godzilla, but that's just mostly because of the overall aesthetic of the toy. The face is really bad. It's just not up to quality. It's not up to the standards that I have. The face doesn't look great. It's too smooth. It's also kind of chunky compared to how it should look. It doesn't look great, and we'll see that when we whip the Bandai out here in a second. The paint's pretty alright. It's got darker tones for the whole body. That looks pretty good. I like that they've painted the toenails and fingernails. The teeth are painted white, which looks good. They've painted the tongue pink, which looks good. The eyes are orange, which look okay, and they're looking in mostly the right direction. Then the spine have kind of a white paint that goes into a gradient leading into the actual darker body, and then it kind of fades out as you get to the tip of the tail, so a little lazy. As for articulation, there's one point in the tail that spins around. Each leg can kick out and go back, and then the arms can spin out and go in, and then the head can turn around. 6 points of articulation total. That feels very standard for this type of toy. It's when you get the Bandai version of him out that it's just night and day. The Bandai version just has a wonderful sculpt across the whole body. The texturing is way more rich on the Bandai version. I maybe like the hand pose on the Playmates one a little more, but the face is so much better on the Bandai one. It is just incredibly better, even though they are very, very similar looking figures. The Bandai one's spines are just significantly stronger. They look much more like the ones from the movie, and they also cut a much more imposing look because of the paint. And the Bandai one has a darker, richer paint overall with a higher contrast to the white. It's just a better figure. The eyes look much, much better on the Bandai one as well. So there they are next to each other. You can see them standing off, and it's very clear which one I would recommend. I would recommend the Bandai one. There's no circumstance I'm recommending the Playmates one. I just don't think it's worth picking up when the Bandai one is an option. As far as sculpting goes, here is the Playmates Gigan from 2004. There they can stand up next to each other. And as far as sculpting goes, the Playmates Gigan 2004 actually looked really solid. It fell apart in the articulation. But there you can have them fight, and it just feels like these are made by two totally different toy companies. Like, these two things don't even look like they're from the same company, but somehow they are. Gigan, your little claw hand's kind of hard to aim. There's the battle right there. At least they're in the same scale. That Gigan might be their most detailed figure they've ever done as far as sculpts go. And then finally, here is the evolved Godzilla. So they're standing up next to each other. This is Playmates as well. And I just wanted to get the evolved Godzilla out because these are the most battle-ready Godzillas we've ever seen. So they kind of go together in that regard. Who would win that fight? I think Final Wars would win that fight, personally. Evolved Godzilla was pretty overpowered, but Final Wars is like the champ. The only other one worth getting out is the bigger Playmates Godzilla 2004. This was, I believe, their 12-inch scale, and it's just astronomically better. It was a little redundant of the Bandai one, and I did review this as a separate video. You can go check that out. But in literally every regard, from the paint to the sculpt to even the articulation, I would say they made improvements with this bigger one. So shout out Playmates for making upgrades when you made the figure in a bigger scale. The small one, not good. The big one, pretty decent. And it's because of that I will be giving the Playmates Godzilla 2004 original 6-inch scale a 4 out of 10. I just don't think it's worth it. Even as a $10 toy, Bandai has proven that they can do much, much better. The sculpt is subpar, the paint is subpar, and I don't love the posing of him either. It makes the articulation a little strained, especially like this hand is kind of in an odd position no matter what. 4 out of 10, not my fave. Do you have the Playmates Godzilla 2004? If so, comment below and let me know what you think of it. Maybe you like it. Maybe you like it a lot more than I do. That's totally cool. You're allowed to. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. It's because of the patrons over on Patreon that I'm able to buy figures like this to review in the first place, and I really appreciate all the support I get over there. If you want to support the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below where you can get early access to content, access to the Discord community, and more. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you all next time for the next one. D-Man out.